I still remember the exact moment when I realized everything I had worked for was being taken away from me. 10 years of my life dedicated to building something from nothing. A tech consulting company worth $4 million that started in my studio apartment with nothing but a laptop and determination. Then, in one dinner announcement, my dad handed it all to my sister Amanda, simply because she had 2 kids and needed it more. The look on her face as she accepted what was rightfully mine still haunts me, but what they never expected was my response. Sometimes the only power you have left is the power to walk away. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from today, and if you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about standing your ground. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you thought would always have your back? Let's dive into how my own father stole my legacy. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Seattle, I always felt the weight of my father Thomas's expectations. Our family wasn't wealthy, but my father constantly talked about building a legacy that would last generations. The problem was that in his eyes, my sister Amanda was always the one destined to carry that legacy forward. Amanda got straight. As again, he would announce at dinner, while my B+ in advanced math barely received a nod. My mother Diane tried her best to balance things out. Christian is doing really well too, she would interject, but it never seemed to land with the same impact. Amanda was 3 years younger than me, but somehow always positioned as the star. I loved my sister, but living in her shadow was exhausting. When she won the state science fair, my father took the family out to celebrate. When I made the honor roll, I got a pat on the back and a keep it up. Despite this, I was determined to make something of myself. I threw myself into computers and technology, finding solace in code when family dynamics became too much. By the time I graduated high school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. College was challenging, but rewarding. I majored in computer science, pulling all-nighters to maintain good grades while working part-time jobs to minimize student loans. My father rarely asked about my studies, except to question whether computer science was a stable career path. After graduation came the real struggles. Despite my degree, breaking into the competitive tech industry proved harder than I anticipated. I applied to all the big names, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, only to receive rejection after rejection. Maybe you should try something else, my father suggested, during a particularly difficult month of job hunting. Your cousin Jeffrey is doing well in real estate. I ignored his advice and took an entry-level IT support role at a local company. The pay was barely enough to cover my small apartment and basic expenses, but it gave me valuable insight into business operations. I noticed how many companies struggled with custom software needs, too specific for off-the-shelf solutions, but not big enough to attract major developers. That's when I saw my opportunity. I started small, building custom software solutions for local businesses on nights and weekends. My first client was a local florist who needed a specialized inventory system. I charged just enough to cover costs, knowing the portfolio piece was worth more than immediate profit. As word spread about my reliable, affordable solutions, more clients came knocking. 6 months in, I faced a decision: continue the security of my day job or go all in on my growing side business. I chose risk over security. The early days of my company were brutal. I worked 16-hour days, living on ramen noodles and coffee. I maxed out 2 credit cards, setting up a proper development environment, and creating marketing materials. There were moments I questioned everything, especially when a potential big client backed out at the last minute, leaving me with a dangerously low bank account. But I persisted. 1 year in, I landed my first major client, a regional healthcare provider needing a custom patient management system. The contract was large enough to hire my first employee, a talented developer named Ryan, who believed in my vision. "This is just the beginning," I told him, as we worked late finalizing the project. "In 5 years, we'll have the top consulting firm in the Pacific Northwest." As the business grew, I moved from my apartment into a real office space. Nothing fancy, just a converted warehouse space with exposed brick and decent internet, but it felt like a palace compared to working from my kitchen table. We developed proprietary software that streamlined our client onboarding and project management, giving us an edge over competitors. Through all this growth, my father remained unimpressed. He visited the office once when we had grown to 10 employees, looked around with a critical eye, and asked, "Is this computer stuff actually profitable?" I showed him our books, already clearing 7 figures in annual revenue, but he just nodded and changed the subject to Amanda's recent promotion at her corporate job. It stung, but I was used to it. I channeled that frustration into working harder, determined to build something so impressive even he couldn't dismiss it. What I didn't realize was that the bigger my company grew, the more it would eventually attract the worst kind of attention from my own family. The trajectory of our family dynamics shifted dramatically when Amanda's picture-perfect life began to unravel. She had followed a more traditional path, college then marriage to James, a smooth-talking investment banker whose family had old money connections. Their wedding had been the social event of the season, with my father beaming with pride as he walked her down the aisle. "Now, that is setting yourself up for success," he whispered to me during the reception, nodding toward James, who was mingling with potential business contacts even on his wedding day. Within 2 years, Amanda and James welcomed twins, a boy and girl named Jackson and Lily. They moved into a sprawling house in an exclusive neighborhood, and Amanda left her corporate job to become a full-time mother. From the outside, her life looked perfect, exactly the kind of family legacy my father had always envisioned. Meanwhile, my business continued its upward climb. We expanded to 30 employees, moved into larger offices, and secured contracts with some nationally recognized clients. Our proprietary software became known for its reliability and innovation, putting us on industry watch lists for companies to watch. Our valuation hit $2 million, then $3 million. But this success came at a personal cost. I had no serious relationships, no time for dating when you're building an empire. My social life consisted of business networking events and occasional drinks with my management team. Every holiday and family gathering, I faced the inevitable questions about when I would settle down and start a real family. All work and no play makes Christian a dull boy, my mother would say, meaning well, but not understanding that my company was my passion. About 5 years into my business journey, cracks began to show in Amanda's perfect life. James was traveling more for business, returning with unexplained expenses and late-night phone calls. When the twins were 5, the bomb dropped. James wanted a divorce. Worse, his family money turned out to be mostly smoke and mirrors, with massive debts hidden behind the luxury facade. Amanda was devastated, and suddenly single, with 2 young children and a lifestyle she could no longer afford. My father was uncharacteristically quiet during this period, his golden child's life plan derailing before his eyes. It was around this time that my father's attitude toward my business underwent a suspicious transformation. During a family barbecue, I overheard him telling his golf buddies about our family company and how we've built something special in the tech sector. I nearly choked on my drink. After years of dismissing my work, he was now claiming partial ownership in conversations. At first, I found it amusing, even slightly validating. Finally, my father was acknowledging my success. What I failed to recognize was that his sudden interest wasn't pride, it was calculation. Amanda started showing up at family dinners with financial concerns. The divorce settlement was messy, childcare was expensive, and her attempts to re-enter the workforce after years away were proving difficult. "I just want to provide stability for Jackson and Lily," she would say, eyes welling with tears. "They deserve better than this." My parents would look at me meaningfully during these conversations, but I initially missed their implications. Then came the direct approach during Thanksgiving dinner. "Christian, your sister has amazing marketing experience from before the twins," my father said, while passing the mashed potatoes. Your company could probably use someone with her skills right. I hesitated. Amanda's marketing experience was in a completely different industry and years outdated. But the expectant looks from my family members made refusal difficult. I could see if we have any suitable positions, I offered reluctantly. 2 weeks later, Amanda was my new director of client relations, a position created specifically for her with a generous salary that raised eyebrows among my leadership team. She's family. I explained to Ryan, now my CTO, who questioned the hiring decision. She's going through a tough time. Amanda's performance was mediocre at best. She struggled with the technical aspects of our business and often missed work for childcare emergencies. Still, I trained her personally, hoping she would improve and trying to ignore the resentment building among other employees who recognized the nepotism at play. What I didn't know was what was happening behind the scenes. Later, I would discover that Amanda and my father had been having private conversations about the company's future. Occasionally, I would catch fragments of these discussions, my father mentioning proper leadership or Amanda talking about long-term security for the kids. I should have seen the warning signs, but I was too focused on our upcoming expansion and potential acquisition offers to recognize the threat developing within my own family. One Tuesday evening, my father called to invite me to dinner at his favorite steakhouse. "Family meeting," he said. "I have something important to discuss about the future." I arrived to find my parents and Amanda already seated at the table, an unusual energy in the air. My father seemed almost giddy, ordering expensive wine and premium cuts. I assumed it was to celebrate our company recently being valued at $4 million, a milestone I had proudly shared at our last family gathering. After the main course, my father clinked his glass and stood up. "I want to make a toast to family legacy," he began, looking around the table with satisfaction. "To the future of the Parker family and the business that will support generations to come." I smiled, waiting for the acknowledgement of my hard work that had created this legacy. "And to our new chief executive officer," he continued, turning to Amanda, "who will ensure that legacy supports those who need it most, the next generation." The restaurant seemed to go silent. I stared at my father, then at Amanda, who was beaming with pride. "What are you talking about?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely audible. "Your sister is taking over as CEO," my father stated matter-of-factly. "With the twins to support, she needs the security of the family business more than you do. You understand, right, son? You've had your time to build things up. Now it's time to think about the family's future." I sat in stunned silence while they celebrated around me, my mind racing to process this betrayal. The business that had consumed 10 years of my life, my vision, my sacrifices, my endless work, was being handed over like a family heirloom to someone who had contributed nothing to its success. And it was only the beginning of the nightmare. The rest of that dinner passed in a blur. My mother chatted excitedly about how wonderful it would be to have the twins visit the office after school. Amanda discussed her vision for company expansion. My father looked on with satisfaction, occasionally glancing at me as if expecting gratitude for his wise succession planning. I barely touched my food, a knot forming in my stomach as I processed what was happening. When the dinner finally ended, I followed my father to the parking lot, while Amanda and my mother headed to their cars. "Dad, what the hell was that?" I demanded, no longer able to contain my anger. "You can't just hand over my company to Amanda. I built it from nothing." He turned to face me, his expression hardening. "The company bylaws give me authority as board chairman. Your sister has children to think about, Christian. What do you have, work? When you have kids of your own, you'll understand why family comes first." Family comes first. When have I ever been first in this family? I shot back. I've been working since I was 16. I put myself through college. I built this business when you said it would fail. And now that it's worth something, you're giving it to Amanda. He sighed the way he always did when he thought I was being difficult. "You've always been so dramatic." Amanda needs this. Her kids need security. And what about what I need? What about fairness? What about recognizing 10 years of my life? Life isn't fair, he said dismissively. You're still young. You can start something else. Amanda doesn't have that luxury with 2 children depending on her. As he drove away, I stood in the parking lot, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath me. The casual cruelty of it all, the assumption that my work, my dreams, my company could just be redistributed because someone else needed it more, left me breathless. I drove to Amanda's house, arriving just as she was paying the babysitter. She invited me in with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I thought you might stop by," she said, pouring herself a glass of wine. "Want one we should celebrate." "Celebrate what?" I asked. "You stealing my company." Her face hardened. "I'm not stealing anything. Dad made a business decision that's best for the entire family." "Best for you, you mean? And you had nothing to do with it. You didn't spend months whispering in his ear about how much you needed security for the kids." "Don't be petty, Christian," she sighed. "You've had your time to shine. Now it's mine. The company needs fresh leadership anyway." Fresh leadership. You've been there 3 months and still can't explain our core services to clients. She took a slow sip of wine. "That's why you'll still work there, of course. Just not as CEO. You can focus on the technical stuff you enjoy without the burden of running things." The audacity left me speechless. She continued, "This has been in the works for months. Dad and I agreed it was the best path forward. The papers are already signed." That was the moment I realized the depth of their betrayal. This wasn't an impulsive decision. They had been planning this coup for months, while I continued to trust them to help Amanda to share company information with my father. I left without another word, driving straight to the office. It was past midnight, but I needed to see the space I had built to think clearly away from my family's manipulation. The building was quiet, my footsteps echoing on the polished concrete floors as I walked through the workstations where my team created solutions that had earned us industry recognition. In my office, I began searching through company documents, trying to understand how they had legally outmaneuvered me. Then I found it, amended bylaws filed 3 months earlier, shortly after Amanda joined the company. Somehow, my ownership percentage had been diluted through a complex issuance of new shares, with my father's minority stake strategically positioned to give him controlling interest when combined with Amanda's newly granted shares. The documentation was all there with my signature, except I never signed these papers. Someone had forged my signature on the amendments, a perfect imitation, but a forgery nonetheless. I spent the night at the office, alternating between rage disbelief and strategic calculation. By morning, I had 2 options: fight a lengthy legal battle against my own family, draining the company's resources and potentially destroying what I'd built, or walk away and start over. The decision crystallized as I watched the sunrise through my office window. I would not let them see me beg for what was rightfully mine. I would not work under Amanda's leadership, being reminded daily of this betrayal, and most importantly, I would not let them define my worth. I opened my laptop and began to write my resignation letter. The office gradually filled with employees as I finished typing my resignation. I printed 3 copies, one for the company records, one for Amanda, and one for my father. Then I called an impromptu meeting with my core team, Ryan, and the 5 department heads who had been with me the longest. "I'm leaving the company," I announced once we were gathered in the conference room, their faces reflecting shock and confusion. "What are you talking about?" Ryan asked. "This is your company." "Not anymore," I explained, outlining the situation without letting emotion overcome my professionalism. "Effective immediately, Amanda will be CEO." The documentation has already been processed. Their reactions ranged from outrage to disbelief. Several immediately offered to resign in solidarity, but I discouraged them. "You have families' responsibilities," I told them. "I appreciate your loyalty, but I want you to make decisions based on what's best for you, not out of anger on my behalf. After the meeting, I began clearing out my office. Word spread quickly, and several employees stopped by to express their support or disbelief. I was packing my personal awards when Amanda arrived earlier than her usual late-morning appearance. "This is childish," she said, watching me place framed certificates into a box. "Just because you are not CEO doesn't mean you need to quit." "I'm not working for someone who betrayed me," I replied calmly, continuing to pack. "You're being dramatic. Dad made a business decision. It wasn't personal." I looked up at her. "Taking something I built from nothing and handing it to you because you have kids is absolutely personal. Don't pretend otherwise." She sighed dramatically. "You'll need to sign a non-compete agreement before you leave. Dad's lawyer is drawing it up now." I actually laughed at that. "I'm not signing anything. You've taken my company. I'm not giving you my future, too." Amanda's face flushed with anger. "You can't just start a competing business. That's unethical." Unethical. I closed my box and faced her fully. Like forging my signature on company bylaws, like planning for months to take over a company you contributed nothing to building, that kind of unethical. She paled slightly, but recovered quickly. "I don't know what you're talking about. Everything was handled legally. Tell that to the forensic document examiner I'll be hiring." I bluffed, having no actual intention of pursuing legal action. The threat was enough to make her uncomfortable. I carried my single box of personal items through the office under her watchful eye. At the elevator, I turned for one last look at the space I had designed, the team I had built, the dream I had realized. Then I walked out without signing any non-compete agreement, despite Amanda's protests. The first weeks after leaving were dark. I moved to a small apartment outside the city, unable to bear being near the office building I used to proudly enter each morning. I ignored calls from my parents and blocked Amanda's number after her initial barrage of messages alternating between threats and insincere attempts at reconciliation. Depression hit me hard. I questioned my self-worth, my judgment, my decade of sacrifice. Had it all been for nothing? There were days I barely got out of bed, replaying every interaction, wondering if I could have prevented the betrayal. The turning point came unexpectedly. Ryan called from a number I didn't recognize, having left the company himself 2 weeks after my departure. "It's falling apart without you," he said without preamble. "Amanda has no idea how to run. The technical side clients are unhappy, and 3 more senior people quit yesterday." I felt no satisfaction at the news. "That's not my problem anymore." "No, but this might interest you. I'm starting something new, smaller, more specialized, and I'm not the only one ready to jump ship." That conversation sparked something in me. Not revenge, but possibility. Within a month, I had secured modest funding for a new venture focused on a specific niche my previous company had only scratched the surface of. Ryan joined as co-founder, bringing 2 talented developers with him. We started small, working from a co-working space rather than fancy offices. I applied every lesson learned from my first business, creating clearer contracts, better profit sharing for employees, and most importantly, an ironclad operating agreement that prevented the kind of takeover I had experienced. The first year was challenging but energizing. We focused on quality over growth, building a reputation for excellence in our specialized field. Former clients, unhappy with the declining service at my old company, began to reach out. We were selective, taking on only projects that aligned with our expertise and vision. News about my former company filtered through industry channels. Amanda's leadership was proving disastrous. Promised deliverables were delayed, quality suffered, and the culture I had carefully cultivated was disintegrating. My father, I heard, had come out of retirement to help manage the situation, but his outdated business approaches only accelerated the decline. The company valuation dropped from $4 million to under $2 million in 18 months. I received desperate voicemails from both Amanda and my father suddenly interested in my input on technical challenges. I never returned the calls. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my life beyond business. I made genuine friendships outside of work, something I had neglected before. I started dating Julia, a children's book illustrator who valued creativity and integrity over material success. In therapy sessions, I unpacked the family dynamics that had led me to seek validation through achievement and learned to recognize patterns of emotional manipulation. 3 years after walking away, my new company surpassed the previous one in both valuation and reputation. We had fewer employees, but higher profitability and a wait list of clients eager to work with us. I implemented an employee ownership structure, ensuring that those who contributed to our success shared in it tangibly. As for family, I established clear boundaries. I reconnected with my mother on limited terms, accepting holiday invitations, only with the understanding that business discussions were off-limits. My father's attempts at reconciliation were met with civil but distant responses. Amanda and I remained estranged, her occasional attempts to clear the air transparently motivated by self-interest rather than genuine remorse. The most valuable lesson from this painful chapter was recognizing my own worth beyond what others assigned to me. I learned that sometimes walking away isn't surrender, it's the ultimate form of self-respect. I built something that could be taken from me once. Now I've built something inside myself that no one can ever take away: confidence in my abilities, trust in my judgment, and the courage to start over when necessary. Looking back, losing my first company was the best thing that could have happened to me. It freed me from toxic family dynamics and pushed me to create something better, not just a more successful business, but a more balanced, authentic life. Have you ever had to walk away from something you built or love to preserve your self-respect? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life experiences about setting boundaries and rebuilding after betrayal. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps anyone facing similar challenges to find the strength to value themselves first.